From The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, our book of the month. And I've actually cobbled together a couple of sections from page 1 and page 7. Page 1 will sound familiar to you because we might have read it before, but it is key. Wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Practicing courage, compassion, and connection in our daily lives is how we cultivate worthiness. The key word is practice. Mary Daly, a theologian, writes, courage is like, it's a habitus, a habit, a virtue. You get it by courageous acts. It's like you learn to swim by swimming. You learn to courage by couraging. The same is true for compassion and connection. We invite compassion into our lives when we act compassionately toward ourselves and others, and we feel connected in our lives when we reach out and connect. I'm going to read through today's affirmation once, and then I'll invite you to join me. It goes like this. I am worthy of love. I release any sense of shame and lean into my innate goodness. I am as God created me, perfect, whole, and complete. I am worthy of love. Please stand and join me with conviction. I am worthy of love. I release any sense of shame and lean into my innate goodness. I am as God created me, perfect, whole, and complete. I am worthy of love. You see, we have our beingness in a web of interconnectedness. Each one of us appears to be sitting in a chair, separate and distinct. And there is a spiritual truth that we are bound to one another by the power and the presence and the love of this thing that we often call God. The universal presence, the universal energy, the infinite pattern of life, whatever you want to call it, it binds us together. But to see that and to know that and to live with that from that place requires that we take some risk. Not me. I want to be safe. Have you ever taken a risk in your life? Have you ever stepped out and done something that had no guarantees? You didn't know how it might turn out? If you've ever gotten married, or had a child, or started a new job, or simply said yes to some bigger expression of life for you, then you have done this thing. You have taken a risk. Now, Brené Brown in our readings this month tells us that wholehearted living involves engaging with life from a place of worthiness. Now, as we step out into life taking risks, we are more likely to have a positive experience, and I don't mean things turning out the way we might want. I mean, however it turns out, we're going to be okay if we are engaging in life from a place of worthiness. Now, Brené Brown tells us that this is a journey. And she says that when you take a trip, you usually take a suitcase with some things in it that you think you're going to need, right? The first three things she tells us we should be putting in our suitcase are courage, compassion, and connection. If we step out in life taking a risk, we will need some courage. In order to navigate that risk with some semblance of grace, we will need compassion for ourselves and for others. And if we are willing to engage with courage and compassion, we will find ourselves connected in new ways. She says that if we practice courage, compassion, and connection, we find ourselves looking at life and the people around us and saying, I'm all in. Are you all in? Say it with me, I'm all in. I'm all in. Say it like you mean it. I'm all in. Hallelujah. All right. I think we're done then. If you're really all in, let's go be all in, and we'll be about it, and all is well. Let me tell you a few more things that might be useful to you on the journey. The first thing I want to do is I want to share a video with you of someone who is playing at life, someone who is all in. Amy, can you hit play for me?
I want every school in Indiana, at least Indiana. But other people like Japan and stuff, they can get buddy benches, but I at least want every school in Indiana to get a few buddy benches for the school. And then it goes to Japan, then China, then all those. Can I sit on it?
Is Sammy all in? That little 9-year-old girl created a buddy bench, 3 of them, at her school, where you can go and sit if you're feeling lonely and excluded. And she trained, by her example, her classmates that when you see someone on that bench, you go and connect with them. She collected, with help, but she piloted the collection of 1,200 pounds of bottle caps, you guys. Do you know how much a single bottle cap weighs? Not very much. 1,200 pounds of bottle caps so that her school could have 3 buddy benches, places where lonely people can connect. I would say that Sammy has embodied these 3 qualities of courage, compassion, and connection. So let's look at it a little bit more deeply. You see, courage is the ability to do what frightens us, isn't it? It doesn't mean we're not scared. It means we can do it anyway. And the root word for the word courage is the Latin word for heart. Living from our heart, living open-heartedly, living wholeheartedly. Brené Brown says, if we are living with courage, we are courageous enough to be open and honest about who we are, our feelings, our dreams, and our experiences. We have the courage to be ourselves in front of people. How many of you hide? I do. I hide sometimes. If I am walking the path of courage, if I've got courage in my suitcase, I allow myself to be authentic and genuine, which means I am vulnerable. To let you see who I really am means I am vulnerable. Do I have the courage to be vulnerable? Well, let me look at Sammy, perhaps, as my inspiration. Does Sammy have the courage to be vulnerable? Here's what she did. Let's go to the next slide, please, Amy. Here's what she did. She created this little comic in which a girl who looks a lot like her is saying, I'm lonely. Do you have the courage to stand in front of people and say from your heart, I'm lonely? My heart is feeling empty right now. I'm lonely. And here's an empty buddy bench. And now here she is sitting on the bench. Will anyone play with me? Have you ever had that? Will anybody come and play with me? And she makes herself vulnerable and available to the yes answer. When I'm hiding in my bedroom, I'm lonely. Will anybody come play with me? That person probably is not going to find me. But if I am stepping out in the world, I'm lonely. Will anyone come and play with me? I'm going to show up in my spiritual community. I'm going to show up in my job. I'm going to show up in my neighborhood as available and vulnerable and authentically who I am. Then suddenly, something can shift now. I can begin to connect. And then here's what happens in her little comic that she did. Here comes somebody else saying, want to play? Yes! And here's what I love. It's a little hard to see on this last one. They go off to play now, right? And the very first things they're saying to each other is, I'm 8. And the other little girl says, I'm 7. And now they're going to go off and play, right? I mean, can you imagine? I'm 59. I'm 42. Want to play? I mean, but you know, what she's sharing is something about her, right? She's sharing something about her that is of value to her and means something to her in her identity. Can we do the same thing? Can we make ourselves available, show up on the bench, be vulnerable, show up? Can you imagine, even when I was 9 years old in my school, if there was such a thing as a buddy bench, I'm not sure I would have been brave enough to go sit on it. Because then everybody would have known I was lonely. Yes? But she's creating an environment in which that's safe, in which that's the norm, that's the way we connect. So I would say that Sammy has a lot of courage in her suitcase. How about you? Is there anything you can learn from Sammy about being courageous? And then Brené Brown tells us we must have compassion. This is such a great word, compassion. Calm is always with. Calm, the Latin root calm, is with passion. And the root word for passion means to suffer. Do you know how passion, sometimes that feels like suffering, right? Does that make sense? With passion, with suffering. The root word of compassion actually means to suffer with. To suffer with. Do I have enough compassion for myself to sit in my suffering and be with it? Do I have enough compassion for you to allow you to sit in your suffering and be with you in that process? Can I be present to my own suffering as well as to yours and not try and fix it and not try and make it okay and not trying to solve your problems, not try to solve my problems, but simply be present to what is happening, because I know I am connected to this infinite web of love and grace and peace and harmony. I'm feeling a little disconnected from it right now, but I can sit in the suffering, I can sit in the pain, I can sit in the loss, I can sit in the sorrow, and know that this too shall pass. If I go sit on the bench and be vulnerable and have the courage to be available, something wonderful will happen. I can get connected by my willingness to be present. Now let me ask you about Sammy. Is Sammy engaging in compassion for others and her own? Did she notice, wow, you know what? Sometimes kids are lonely. Maybe I could just go sit on a bench and be lonely until somebody shows up to ease my suffering by being in it with me and then lifting me out of it by playing with me. By playing at life. Sammy is engaging some pretty powerful compassion there, isn't she? Instead of making someone wrong for being lonely, she's giving them space to be lonely and then not be lonely anymore. But you only get to the not be lonely anymore by having the space to be lonely, right? And so she creates the place, no judgment, complete acceptance of the current condition. She makes the place where compassion for others can be generated. I'm crazy about Sammy. I want her for a guest speaker. I think she could teach us a few things. So we have our courage in our suitcase, the willingness to show up and be vulnerable. We have our compassion in our suitcase, the willingness to sit with what's happening no matter what it is, bless it and allow it to heal itself. Because it will, because we live in this web of infinite connection. And indeed, as we practice courage and compassion, we find that we become worthy of connection. This is living wholeheartedly, living from this state of worthiness. I understand that I am courageous. I have great compassion for myself and others. We begin to develop a greater sense of worthiness. And we suddenly, it's like it happens by itself, right? We find ourselves connected in new ways. How you doing so far? So Brené Brown says that connection, I want to read this exactly because I liked how she said this. It's on page 19. She says that connection, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So connection is an energy that exists between us when we feel seen and heard and valued, when we're being accepted as we are. But you know what? Nobody can connect with us and accept us as we are if we're not willing to be as we are, which is why courage and compassion come first. Can you think of a time in your life when your effort to fit in, your effort to be loved, your effort to feel connected actually got in the way of your connecting? I can. All I wanted was to be loved. And so I engaged in all the ways I thought people would want me to engage in order to love me. But you see, that wasn't me being me. It was me trying to be somebody else or something else. Have you ever done this? See, our efforts to just be accepted for who we are by being someone we're not are never going to work. Which is why the buddy bench is so cool. Nobody's pretending they're not lonely. They're just out there. I'm lonely. What a powerful idea that we simply be available. And then, and only then, can we connect. You see, connection is our natural state. This is where I started. We are connected by an infinite web of spiritual energy, if you will. Each one of us is a pearl on the infinite necklace of God. That is kind of loosely translated from a Hindu teaching. Very loosely translated. But you see, we are all part of the infinite presence. Each one of us, that pearl, that center of individual energy, but connected by the divine energy. And that divine energy has no judgment, has no opinions about you, has no opinions about your friends. Do you have opinions about your friends? Those are your opinions. Those are not God's opinions. God has no opinions about anything. It simply is. The energy of that infinite presence simply is, and we can align with the love that is the animating force behind that energy and experience greater connection in our lives. You see, when we experience that kind of connection, our lives are energized and fulfilled rather than drained. Do you have people you hang out with, you leave, you're just drained? Right? That is that energy where you have to effort at being something you're not in order to be accepted. And it's exhausting. The divine energy of love sustains and lifts us, nourishes us, energizes us, feeds us. I want to go sit on the buddy bench and meet this little girl and tell her how old I am and go play. Be myself. Be present. So here's my question for you. Do you have the courage to be who you really are? And if you don't know who you really are, because some of us don't, do you have the courage to find out? To do the deep inner work, to get acquainted with your soul and your purpose, to go deep with God, to go deep with your essence, that connecting energy. Do you have the courage to do that? Do you have the self-compassion to be imperfect while you're doing that? To not beat yourself up when you make mistakes? Do you have the self-compassion to simply be in that process and allow it to unfold, no matter what happens? Maybe somebody comes up to you on the buddy bench and is like, what a jerk. Do you have the compassion for that person? To love them for who and where they are? To recognize that that person is suffering. Okay. And to simply be with that, knowing that something greater is happening, knowing that there is a spiritual truth, that as we align with it, we are lifted into a bigger idea and a greater experience of life. Do you have the self-compassion to walk this journey with a sense of your connectedness to the greater one? And do you have the ability to be vulnerable for the sake of connecting more fully with life? Now, I don't know about you, but I cannot fully answer yes to all three of these questions. Those are big questions, right? I can say sometimes, yeah, okay, when things are going well, I get stressed out and maybe not. Depends on who I'm with, where I am. I want to be able to answer a full-hearted yes to all three of these questions. A full-hearted yes. I have the courage to be myself. I have the self-compassion to be imperfect. I have the ability to be vulnerable for the sake of greater connection. I want to be able to say an unqualified yes to all of those things. In order for me to get there, I got to keep doing the work, right? What did Brené Brown tell us? The journey to wholehearted living is a journey. It's not a destination. We don't get there. We walk the path. We take the stuff we think we need. And you know what? Sometimes how you're on a trip and suddenly you realize you have something, you don't have something you kind of need. What do? You go to the store and you get it. You make it possible for you to enjoy the journey by your willingness to be flexible and call in what's missing. And you know, I don't know about you, but I like traveling with someone. Get yourself a spiritual community that will travel with you. Maybe it's us. I know that is us for a lot of you in this room because I know you. But let's travel together. Let's go on a trip together. Trip to living wholeheartedly. A trip, that trip to living our lives, engaging with life from a place of worthiness. Let's learn to be worthy together. Let's do the mental buddy bench together, supporting each other on the journey. Are you ready to go? All right, so let's seal this message with a little bit of a meditation, if you will, a little bit of a visualization that might get us started on the trip. So I invite you to, if you wish, to close your eyes and to feel yourself fully supported by your chair. And bring your attention to your breath. And you feel your breath moving in and out of your body effortlessly and easily, nourishing every cell, every organ and every function of your body, simply in harmony with the universal presence of life. And as you breathe, surrender right now to your awareness of this infinite web of which you are a part. You belong to the universe. One power, one life, one love. And you begin to feel the vibration of that energy at the core and the center of your being, and you recognize it is telling you something. It is communicating your oneness. It is communicating the allness of the universal presence is right where you are. And even the pores of your skin begin to open with this vibration of life. And the boundaries become soft. And you know that you are infinitely connected to the person to your left and to your right, the one in front of you, the one behind you. For there is only God, God the good, God the infinite. And as you anchor your awareness in this web of all life, begin to prepare for your journey. Open the suitcase of your heart. And recognize there is courage already there. You possess the infinite courage of the infinite life, for you are at one with it. Ah, yes, there it is. My courage, it is with me always. And now look around in your heart for compassion. Your ability to sit and be with whatever might unfold around you in your own life and in the lives of others. And you recognize God's mind and my mind, God's heart and my heart, one heart. My infinite compassion is always with me, for God is always with me. And check now for your availability to connection, your willingness to be vulnerable, your willingness to sit on the buddy bench of life so that you may connect with the energy and the life of all. And again, you recognize it is right where you are. You are lifted and sustained and supported by the infinite mind and heart of God. There is no separation, only one. And now just close your suitcase, snap it up, and pick it up with confidence. And see yourself striding forth in faith, in love. Knowing that you are connected to the infinite mind and heart of God, and therefore you are connected to everyone and everything you see. Your worthiness is in your willingness, and you are willing to be worthy. God is calling. Just say yes. Just say yes. And so give thanks. Give thanks that all that you require for this journey has already been provided. Give thanks for the deeper sense of authenticity and compassion and connection you are already experiencing in this room. Give thanks for that power and that presence that has called you to this place and has equipped you already with all that is required for joyful, fulfilled living. Give thanks and call it good as we remember who we are together. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. 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 And so we stand in the remembering, we rest in the remembering, and so it is. Amen.